It was the evening before New Year's Eve, and the air in Fairview, Oregon had that dry, biting chill that made every breath feel like inhaling tiny glass shards. I had just arrived at my parents' place, a suburban colonial on the edge of the woods, with their hand-painted mailbox still bearing our last name in elegant cursive, even though mine felt more like a footnote these days. I stomped the frost off my boots on their front step and entered quietly. My gloves were still damp from brushing snow off the windshield of my car. I remember thinking I should have stayed in San Diego. I should have never made this trip. But I did. And I was standing in their foyer, my bag hanging off one shoulder, when I noticed something above the stone fireplace that made my stomach lurch. A large, freshly framed family photo. Elegant, crisp, glowing under the spotlight they must have had installed just for it. My mother had a thing for custom lighting. It was center-aligned like it was meant to be admired. Except something was off. I walked up, my boots still squeaking on their polished hardwood floor. There they were, my father in his classic brown sweater, hand resting lightly on my sister's shoulder, who was wearing a champagne-colored wrap dress and holding a glass of red like she was posing for a wine label. My mom standing at the other side, that trademark soft wave in her hair, pearl necklace catching the light. They were all looking toward the camera like they had found the secret formula for happiness. And I wasn't in it. Not blurred, not hidden in the corner, not even in the background. I was gone. Not just cropped, erased. It wasn't a mistake. This wasn't some badly stitched collage. This was a professionally taken portrait mounted on canvas printed with museum-quality gloss. The kind you pay hundreds for. I know because I had once helped a friend run a photography studio. Whoever composed this shot did so with precision. There was no room for chance. I stood there for what felt like 3 seconds, maybe 5. My fingers curled involuntarily inside my gloves. No one said anything. No. Oh, we didn't have space, or we meant to take a new one with you. Just silence. From the kitchen, I heard my mother's voice call out casually, "Dinner should be ready in 20s. Like it was any other evening. Like we were still the sort of family that talked about our day at the dinner table. I let my eyes fall back on the photo one more time. There was even a golden plaque at the bottom. It said the Whitakers, Winter Gathering 2024. The last time we had all been together for a picture was in 2018 before I moved out for grad school, and even then I had stood between them. Back then, I still believed there was space for me in their narrative. I let out a quiet breath and shrugged off my coat, hanging it in the entryway closet. My bag dropped to the floor with a thud. Still no one greeted me. Still no acknowledgement. It was as though I had walked into a staged home for a magazine spread where the family already existed, except I wasn't part of it. I stepped into the hallway, passing the photo again. My stomach knotted itself slowly. The frame caught the light just right, and I caught my reflection not in the photo, but on the glass covering it. An echo. That's all I was now, a reflection on something I used to belong to. The kitchen smelled like thyme and roasted garlic with a faint hint of citrus zest, probably that lemon herb chicken my mom insisted on serving every holiday like it was some culinary legacy. I stepped in past the rustic oak archway and found the familiar scene playing out like it had every year, only colder somehow. My sister Bianca stood by the marble island swirling a glass of rosé with the flair of a lifestyle influencer prepping a holiday hosting reel. Her outfit looked straight out of a boutique. Add soft ivory cashmere cardigan, tailored tan trousers, no doubt designer. Her hair was pulled into a loose bun, the kind that probably took 45 minutes to style but passed for effortless. She saw me and leaned in, well leaned adjacent, and kissed the air beside my cheek. "You made it," she said, like I was late to a photo shoot, and she was the talent waiting in full makeup. "Wouldn't miss it," I murmured, though I had nearly turned the car around outside Portland. I glanced at the dining table. The setting was as always impeccable. Slate-colored charger plates, cloth napkins folded into sharp fans, name cards written in cursive gold ink. Mine simply said Alyssa. No endearment, no welcome back, just the name like I was a guest. From the corner of my eye, I saw my dad walk in with a carving knife already in hand, like he had rehearsed the role of patriarch on parade. His sweater vest was forest green, the same one I remembered from a Thanksgiving a decade ago. He gave a stiff smile, polite, unreadable, and nodded. "How's the little hatchback treating you?" he asked, referencing the car I sold over a year ago. "I drive a hybrid now," I said softly. "Ah." He nodded again, already turning his attention to the roast. Translation: "We haven't been keeping up, and this is us pretending otherwise." We all took our seats like it was a scene from a lukewarm drama. Mom commented on Bianca's glowing skin twice, crediting some herbal serum she picked up during a Napa trip with their book club. Bianca beamed. "I've been doing cold plunges," she added, lifting her wine glass like a toast. Nobody asked where I live now. No one inquired about my job, my new apartment in Oakland, or how I managed to switch careers last spring. The only direct question came from my mom. "Did you ever get that door lock fixed on your car?" I blinked. That lock had been broken 2 winters ago, and I had already traded the car. "Yeah, I did," I answered anyway. It was their code. Their way of checking in without really seeing me. Like they were playing Mad Libs with my life, hoping I'd fill in the blanks and save them from the awkwardness of actually caring. The meal continued like a well-practiced waltz. My dad passed the bread with exaggerated ceremony. My mom brought out her signature cranberry orange salad no one ever touched. Bianca told a story about her co-creative circle and their artist-in-residence program in Jackson Hole. Something about modern sculpture made with reclaimed glass. At some point, Mom handed Bianca a delicately wrapped box. She peeled back the tissue with dramatic finesse and pulled out a vintage silver bracelet with tiny emerald charms. "This is stunning," Bianca squealed. "We found it at that little shop near Monterey," Mom said, eyes misting. Dad added, "Thought it'd match your eyes." He was wrong, but no one corrected him. The price tag was still tucked under the box's velvet lining. I caught a glimpse, $875. I did some quick math. That would cover 2 months of groceries for me if I shopped smart. Then it was my turn. Mom reached under the table and handed me a small gift bag. Inside was a white ceramic mug with a red heart and the words, "World's Okayest Daughter," printed in playful script. There was a beat of silence, the kind where everyone smiles a little too long, hoping you'll laugh to make it okay. "Just a bit of humor," Dad said. "Thought you'd appreciate the irony," Mom chimed in. I managed a smile, the kind that you practice in the mirror when you're trying not to show your molars. I nodded, said thank you, and sipped from the water glass in front of me to keep from saying something that would ruin the performance. After dessert chocolate tart with sugared cranberries, I excused myself. Mom offered the guest room. Not your old room, not even Alyssa's room, just the guest room. I found it on the second floor across from the linen closet. The bed was made in beige linens. There was a dusty candle on the side table, the kind labeled with vague names like Serenity or Whispering Woods. The single lamp flickered when I turned it on, its bulb buzzing like a lazy mosquito. I sat at the edge of the bed, my back straight, my hands folded on my lap. Then I reached into my tote bag and pulled out the envelope. Thick ivory-toned paper, wax seal. It had been waiting. I turned it over once, twice. I had planned to give it to them tomorrow after coffee after the facade. But seeing that photo, the one I had been airbrushed out of, something hardened in me. They hadn't forgotten me, they had deleted me. That night, I did not sleep. Not truly. I lay under the beige quilt with the sharp fold lines still pressed into the fabric, listening to the hum of the baseboard heater and the familiar creak of the floor outside the room, the guest room, as if naming it so had somehow erased my childhood entirely. Down the hall, I heard my father's unmistakable snore, the kind that started in the chest and rolled like distant thunder. At some point, my mother's voice floated up faintly, something about whether they had remembered to bring out the nice dishware for the next morning's breakfast. Bianca giggled in reply, that soft, breathy laugh she had perfected, like a soundbite rehearsed for maximum effect. The Golden Child soundtrack. I turned toward the wall and stared at the shadows of tree branches shifting outside the window. My phone buzzed once from the dresser. Just a calendar notification. Nothing urgent, nothing human. I ignored it. Instead, I turned back toward the envelope on the nightstand. Thick, heavy, a muted ivory shade that almost looked like it belonged to a wedding invitation. When I first printed the documents inside, I had imagined slipping them across the table during morning coffee. Calm, composed, with everyone halfway through their croissants and polite banter. Maybe it would land better than buffered by caffeine and cinnamon rolls. But after the portrait, the one where I was surgically extracted, I no longer felt like cushioning the truth. They had not simply drifted from me over time. No, they had systematically boxed me out, folded their arms and closed the circle. I had not been forgotten. I had been excluded with intention. The signs had always been there, hadn't they? Like when I received my acceptance to Columbia and they said, "We're so proud," only to follow it with, "Would you mind taking a gap year? Your sister's moving to Seattle and she could use the car." That car I paid for gas, maintenance, and insurance. Or when I was behind on rent in Sacramento and called home, something I rarely did, and my dad said, "Wish we could help, but we're trying to stay under budget for Bianca's photography retreat in Aspen." That was the same year they mailed her a custom camera strap engraved with her initials. I received a candle that smelled like spearmint and regret. Or the time I introduced them to someone I cared about. A guy named Joshua, kind, thoughtful, and halfway through dinner my dad referred to him as Jeremy. He didn't correct him. I didn't either. Josh never joined us again. I never blamed him. Lying there, I thought of all the ways I had rationalized their behavior. Maybe I was just too sensitive. Maybe they showed love differently. Maybe they were waiting for me to be more like her. But those were stories I told myself. Narratives that softened the edge of the truth I had become invisible in my own family. And yet, I endured. I excelled. I worked 3 part-time jobs while studying media strategy, survived on microwave dumplings and freelance gigs, and still graduated with honors, moved to the Bay Area, found an apartment, built a life, a quiet one, a life without calls home, without care packages, but still mine. When I got laid off last year, I didn't reach out. When I was sick and rationing medication because the copay was absurd, I didn't call. When a pipe burst in my apartment and the entire carpet molded over Thanksgiving weekend, I slept on a friend's couch until I could afford a new lease. And still, no one asked where I had gone. No one noticed I wasn't around. Meanwhile, Bianca launched a lifestyle brand, or tried to. The Instagram account was full of white backgrounds, eucalyptus bundles, and filtered mornings that looked nothing like reality. Her launch party was hosted in the same beach house I now knew was never rented but owned. That was how it began, the unraveling. I had applied for a business grant and needed proof of residency from my childhood years. Simple, bureaucratic. But the search for documentation led to a property record, one with my name on it, attached to a small duplex in Medford I had never even seen. At first, I assumed it was a clerical error, a name mix-up, but curiosity tugged at me like it always had. I requested more documents, public records, title histories, county filings. Each one whispered the same thing: my grandfather had left the property to me. Sole beneficiary. The will had been processed 2 years ago. Only no one told me. My parents had handled the estate, they said. They said there were no major assets. They said he left us all memories. I did not confront them then. I watched. I learned. They had not just hidden it. They had been collecting rent for over 24 months using the funds for travel upgrades and Bianca's so-called studio renovation, all under my legal name. Now I had the evidence. I had spent weeks putting together the dossier, the lease agreements, the bank transfers, and now it rested in that sealed envelope tucked beside the flickering lamp. I stared at the ceiling and listened as the house settled, the familiar clicks of the heating ducts, the ticking from the clock in the hallway. For years, I believed that if I stayed quiet, they would notice me. That if I worked hard enough, loved hard enough, proved my worth hard enough, eventually I'd be seen. But silence, I realized, is not proof of strength. It is permission, and I had revoked it. The morning arrived on schedule, coated in frost and false optimism. The living room was already aglow with soft white lights and curated clutter ribbons, discarded wrapping paper, and an artificial fir tree that still smelled faintly of citrus-scented spray. I had stayed in the guest room longer than necessary, sipping coffee from the mug they gave me, the one with "World's Okayest Daughter" still smirking from the ceramic. Downstairs I could hear laughter. My mother humming a classic jazz carol, my father rustling through presents, Bianca's voice cooing over something so thoughtful. I stood at the top of the stairs, fingers brushing the banister. I did not feel anger anymore, just clarity, just motion. When I walked in, no one noticed at first. My mother was arranging croissants on a platter, as if hosting a morning segment on a lifestyle channel. My father scrolled his phone absently while balancing a coffee mug. Bianca, barefoot and relaxed, was nestled on the couch legs tucked beneath her, sipping almond milk from a champagne flute. "Good morning," my mother said without looking up. "Hope the mattress was not too firm." "It has opinions," I replied, pouring myself coffee. She laughed, assuming I was joking. I was not. Breakfast passed the same way it always had, performative, polite, detached. My sister spoke at length about her planned trip to Charleston, how she was so blessed to have parents who believe in her creativity. Dad nodded proudly. Mom wiped an invisible crumb off the tablecloth. No one asked if I was still working. No one remembered that I had moved to a new apartment in Oakland. No one brought up the fact that I had driven 7 hours to be here, that I had paid for gas with a Visa card dangerously close to its limit. I waited. The envelope remained tucked inside the inner pocket of my coat. After breakfast, we moved into the living room. Presents were passed out. Wrapping paper flew like confetti. Bianca unwrapped a leather weekender bag from a boutique in Santa Fe. Mom received a pearl brooch from a hidden gem in New Hampshire. Dad opened a stainless steel cocktail set. They laughed, posed, clinked glasses for invisible followers. Then I reached into my coat, retrieved the envelope, and set it quietly on the coffee table. No announcement, no flourish. At first, no one noticed. 10 minutes passed before my mother's eyes narrowed at the sight of something out of place on her pristine wooden surface. "What's this?" she asked, lifting it like it might be a misplaced utility bill. "That's from me," I said. "Oh, honey, you didn't have to get us anything," my father added, still smiling. "I know," I replied. "I wanted to." The smile faded. My mother turned the envelope over, studying the seal. "Should we open it now?" I shrugged. "Up to you, but I would not recommend it." So naturally, they opened it. My father leaned closer as she cracked the wax, sliding out the documents. For a moment, the room was filled only with the soft rustling of paper. Bianca was still preoccupied with positioning her new bag for a photograph until the shift in silence stopped her. The silence thickened like humidity before a storm. My father's brows drew together. My mother's hands moved faster, flipping to the second page, the third. Bianca blinked. "What is it?" They said nothing, so I stood. "I figured it was time you knew," I said evenly. "Happy New Year." My mother finally found her voice. "What is this?" Her tone was flat neutral. "That I said is a copy of Granddad's will." Her mouth twitched. "We already handled the estate." "No," I interrupted, calm. "You handled what you claimed was the estate. You never showed me the full will. You said he left behind some furniture and a small insurance policy that went toward burial costs." My father looked like he had swallowed a stone. "That version," I continued, "did not include the duplex in Medford, the one you've been renting out for the last 2 years. My mother dropped the papers onto the table like they burned her palms. "Where did you get this?" my father asked. "Public records," I said. "Ownership transfers, archived emails, utility bills, property tax statements. Also a real estate attorney. Very patient, by the way." Bianca finally stood. "Wait, what property?" "The one by the orchard park," I said. "The one you used for that lifestyle shoot last year, remember?" She paled. "That's yours. My name's on the deed." My mom leaned forward, trying her best gentle voice. "Sweetheart, this is not what it seems." "Oh, I know," I said. "Because what it seems is that you used my name, my inheritance, and my legal rights to support your lifestyle while telling me there was nothing left." My dad rubbed his temples. "You are being dramatic." "Am I?" I asked, chuckling. "You literally removed me from a family portrait and committed property fraud. But yes, let's focus on my tone." Bianca stepped back like the floor might open. "But that duplex paid for my website launch and the retreat. That's not fair." "You didn't need it," my mother blurted. "You've always been so capable, independent." "Because I was told there was nothing to ask for," I said. "Because you made sure I believed that." My father's voice dropped an octave. You need to calm down, and you, I said, turning to him, need legal counsel. He froze. I'm not suing, I added, not yet. But I've filed the necessary paperwork. Ownership of the property is officially back in my name. The tenants have been informed. All rent payments will now come directly to me. Your access has been revoked. My mother stared like I had just spoken in another language. That property is our income. Then maybe, I said softly, you should not have stolen it. She blinked fast. We're family. No, I said. You are people I share DNA with. Family is earned. My sister folded her arms. You think this makes you better? No, I said. Just not beneath you anymore. The silence that followed was seismic. No one moved. No one spoke. The envelope sat like a bombshell in the center of the room, opened, read, undeniable. My father's hands were clenched on his knees, jaw flexing as if rehearsing what he would say. My mother's eyes flicked between the documents and the floor, still not meeting mine. Bianca stared at me like I had turned to stone and shattered in front of her. I picked up my coat and moved toward the entryway. Wait! My mother stood, her voice now trembling. Can we at least talk about this? You just did, I said calmly. Every decision you made without me, every lie, every time you edited me out. That was the conversation. If you walk out now, my father warned, do not bother coming back. I paused at the door, one hand on the handle. Then I turned back, locking eyes with him for the first time in years. I think I said that's the first thing we've ever agreed on. The air outside was sharp but honest. It filled my lungs like something solid, like a truth I had been starved of for far too long. I stepped into it without hesitation. The wind stung, but it carried no weight. I climbed into my car, turned the key, and let the engine hum. I did not cry. I did not scream. I just drove. Past the frosted hedges, the silent driveways, the ghosts of holidays that never felt like mine. Because sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is walk away. And sometimes the loudest scream is the silence of finally choosing yourself. 3 weeks passed before the first message came in. It was from my mother, short, formal, overprocessed. Hi, Alyssa. We've been thinking a lot about everything. There may have been some misunderstandings. Can we talk sometime this week? Hope you're well. Love you. No punctuation after love you. Just the words dangling like a thread from a sweater that had already unraveled. I did not reply. 2 days later, another message, this one slightly more frantic. Please do not let this one mistake ruin everything. Bianca is very upset. Your father is trying to stay calm, but you know how he gets when he feels cornered. Cornered, not guilty, not ashamed, cornered. Then came a voicemail from Dad. I never listened to it. Just stared at the notification before hitting delete. The last time he called me kiddo, it was while I tried helping him refinance his life insurance. He had waved me off and said, let's leave the money stuff to people who understand it. Right, like him. Bianca was next, an email. Do you really think this makes you some kind of winner? Fine, take the house, but don't come crawling back when you realize money doesn't equal family. A day later, a follow-up. Mom and Dad are stressed out. They might have to sell the condo. Hope that was what you wanted. Congrats. That one I read twice, not out of guilt, but because it confirmed something I had begun to suspect. The house had been their foundation. The rent from the duplex in Medford had covered their monthly mortgage, their vacation fund, part of Bianca's consulting fees. Even I suspected a portion of my mother's miracle skincare treatments, which had always smelled suspiciously like medical-grade filler. When I reclaimed ownership, the scaffolding collapsed, and I had not even asked for back rent. Not yet. By spring, the whispers started to reach me. A family friend mentioned in passing that my father had taken up independent consulting, again working the phone, she said delicately. My mother had picked up weekend shifts at a boutique in Eugene, the kind of place where she used to shop, not scan barcodes. Bianca back at home. Her apartment in Seattle had proven too expensive. Her creative collective had quietly disbanded or imploded, it was unclear which. Her online fundraiser for a fresh chapter had raised exactly $96. 43 of that had come from a yoga teacher I vaguely remembered from childhood. Meanwhile, I moved into the house. My house. It was a duplex, yes, but clean, solid, sunlit in the mornings. The wood floors still creaked and the cabinets were outdated. But they were mine. I had a local contractor replace the windows, repaint the trim, and refinish the porch steps. I sold most of the leftover furniture, kept one chair, a navy blue recliner I vaguely remembered from when I was 8, reading under a blanket during a thunderstorm. The tenants grateful. One of them left a thank you note after I reduced rent slightly. Said I was the first landlord who treated them like a human being. That meant more to me than any recycled-ware family email ever could. I stopped checking my phone every few minutes. I stopped bracing for the next emotional ambush. I started sleeping through the night. And then one Thursday, I found a letter in my mailbox. Not a text, not an email, a letter. Cream-colored envelope, my mother's handwriting, still neat, still looped. I held it for a moment before opening it. Not because I expected something genuine, but because I wanted to witness the moment. The paper smelled like her perfume inside 2 pages. Apologies wrapped in passive phrases. We did not know. It was never intentional. We only wanted what was best. But the one that stayed with me, you have always been so strong. We did not realize you needed anything from us. That was not a compliment. That was an excuse. A confession not of wrongdoing, but of the comfort they took in my silence. She closed the letter with, "Maybe one day you will come back. Maybe we can be a family again." No mention of the property, no mention of restitution. I folded the letter and slid it into a drawer. I did not respond. 3 years later, I ran into a former neighbor while browsing secondhand cookbooks at a local thrift shop. Mrs. Alvarez from the unit down the street in Fairview. Her hair had gone grayer, and she wore oversized sunglasses even indoors, but her voice was unmistakable. "Alyssa Whitaker," she asked, peering at me over the brim of her lenses. I smiled. "Guilty. You still managing that place near the orchard?" I am, I said. She paused, then tilted her head just slightly, as if testing the temperature of the moment. "I heard your parents had a rough patch." I didn't reply. She nodded slowly, kindly. "Well, you look happy. That's what matters." And I was. I am. I still live in the house now, not because I cannot afford to move, not out of resentment or symbolism, but because it's quiet here. The air smells like soil after rain. Birds tap the windowsills in the morning. My small herb garden thrives under the kitchen window. The upstairs room is now my home office. I work in digital strategy full-time, freelance on the side. The neighbors wave when they see me. My tenants knock if the dryer gets stuck. Sometimes I bake too much and leave banana bread at their doors. They return the favor with fresh tomatoes or folded notes of thanks. There's a photo on my mantle now, me standing on the front porch holding the keys. No filters, no soft lighting, just me. It's my favorite picture because I didn't have to crop anyone out of it. The holidays pass quietly now. Sometimes I visit friends. Sometimes I stay in and read. Every now and then, a message slips through an email forwarded from a distant cousin, a Christmas card with no return address that says, "Thinking of you, hope you're well." I never reply. Because I no longer need to. Not out of spite, not from bitterness, but because that chapter is over. I spent most of my 20s trying to shrink myself small enough to fit into their version of family. I tried being agreeable, then distant, then successful, then silent. I thought if I was just the right mix of grateful and low maintenance, maybe they'd finally see me. But love that only works when you're convenient isn't love. It's branding, it's packaging. It's a campaign for a narrative where someone like Bianca shines and someone like me stays in the shadows. And I am done living in anyone's shadows. The life I have now didn't come wrapped in ribbon. It came in the form of hard choices, quiet nights, bank statements and legal filings, and holding my breath while waiting for county records. It came from walking away. And walking away was the first time I realized I didn't have to keep waiting for permission to exist. I do not fantasize about reconciliation. I do not daydream about dramatic apologies, family dinners where someone finally says we were wrong. I no longer replay the arguments hoping to find better words, because there's nothing left to fix, not for me. They chose their story, I chose mine, and mine is better. My home smells like cinnamon and cedar in the winter. I paint the porch steps every other year. I replace the old doorbell with one that chimes like a wind harp. I keep books stacked on the stairs, plants by the sink, postcards from cities I've visited pinned to the fridge. It's not picture perfect, but it's real, and it's mine. I used to wonder if I would ever stop feeling like a supporting character in someone else's life. Now I don't wonder anymore. Because for the first time I am the author. Not the footnote, not the cautionary tale, not the deleted scene. I am the headline. I gave myself the closure no one offered. I signed the final page on a family script that never let me speak. I did not burn bridges. I simply stopped building them toward people who watched me drown. And when people ask if I miss them, I say no. I miss who I thought they were. But that version of them only existed in my hopes, not in reality. What I have now is not flashy. It does not sparkle on social media or earn applause at holiday dinners. But it is whole. I wake up with peace instead of tension. I sleep without imagining conversations I'll never have. And every now and then I sit on my porch, barefoot, coffee in hand, and I think, this is enough.